today I thought I would show you how to make Pastéis de Nata, gluten-free Pastéis de Nata, otherwise known as Portuguese Custard Tarts. Now, I must admit, I haven't had that many in my life, and that is purely because it's really hard to find gluten-free Portuguese custard tarts anywhere. Like, you can't. So I thought instead of not having them, I'd make my own recipe and share it with everyone so that we can all have Pastéis de Nata, because all us gluten-free people really, truly deserve them, and they are the most delicious thing in the world. It's actually a really simple recipe to follow, and it uses one of my other recipes, which I will link the video to it somewhere on the screen or in the description below, which is my gluten-free rough puff pastry recipe. It uses that, or obviously you can use store-bought if you wanted to. And the recipe for the Pastéis de Nata and for the rough puff pastry are in my book, which I will link in the description below. It's got tons and tons of recipes in it, not just those. It's got over 100 gluten-free recipes, all of things that I just wish, well, I wished before this that I could eat, because there were so many things that I couldn't eat, and now I just make my own in a really simple way. So yeah, I'll link that in the description below if you want to check it out. Would really appreciate it, and thank you very much. Anyway, without further ado, I will show you the ingredients that you'll need, and then we'll get on with making some Pastéis de Nata, gluten-free. Okay, so these are all the ingredients that you'll need. Firstly, this is my homemade gluten-free rough puff pastry. So that has been in the fridge. I made this a couple of days ago, so obviously it lasts very well. If you don't want to make your own puff pastry, I always say that you can use store-bought stuff, so like this one. But honestly, this is really easy, and I think it makes the best anything, you know, puff pastry-wise, making your own. When it's really, really simple, this is what you want to do. Then also the rest of the ingredients are just for the custard inside. So we've got some gluten-free plain flour, we've got some water, I've got some milk here, and I've separated it into 2 amounts because we'll need to separate them. So that's exactly the same milk. I've got some egg yolks, I've got some sugar, and then flavouring wise I've got a bit of vanilla extract and some cinnamon sticks. And the one other thing, as well as ingredients that you'll need, ideally, is some sort of thermometer like this. This is the one I use. You can get them really cheaply, but it really helps in this recipe to just have one. If you don't, you will survive, hopefully, but that's what I recommend. So yeah, those are all the ingredients. Not really very many, and all things that you'll easily have in the cupboard at home. Also, you know, with the flavourings and stuff, if you didn't have cinnamon sticks, it's okay, you could use a bit of cinnamon, like ground cinnamon. But yeah, that's what you'll need. Let's get on with it. Right, so if you're using my gluten-free rough puff pastry recipe, I like to cut mine in half because it's just easier to work with when you only have half the amount. So I've cut mine in half. See all the nice layers in there? There you go. And we're gonna roll this out into like a rectangular shape. You'll see what I'm doing, so that then we can do the next step. So I will roll it out. Make sure, I like to roll it out on a piece of non-stick baking paper because I find it easier so it doesn't stick to your surface, depending on what your surface is. I also like to flour it a little bit. But yeah, I'll show you when I've rolled it out. Okay, so as you can see, I have rolled this out. I have measured it, and it's sort of around, well, it's a bit more than this, but around 30 centimeters by about 15. A bit less there, a bit longer in places, but it's fine. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna tightly roll this up so that we sort of have a log kind of shape. And obviously there'll be bits that are a bit more in, like there, but the pastry is a decent thickness still. It's still very much able to be rolled, and because we've done it on the non-stick baking paper with the flour down, it hasn't stuck at all, which is absolutely great. Again, something that I always say with pastry things is that you don't want to be doing this on a really, really hot day. I mean, today is getting a bit hotter now, but I'm doing it in the morning, so it's fine and we'll survive. But pastry and hot weather do not mix, so try to avoid that as much as you can. But yeah, I'm just going to roll this up now, and then we'll cut it into little pieces, which will be the bases of our Pastéis de Nata. Okay, so I've rolled it up now. You might have seen that I had 2 or 3 sticky bits, but barely, and it rolled perfectly. So I've got this sort of pattern now, and now what I want to do is I want to cut it into sections. Probably for this, I'm not sure how many, maybe about 6. And then I'll be pressing them into my muffin tin or my cupcake tin. So that's something that you'll need for this. So I'm gonna cut this into pieces now, and then we'll put it into our tin. Okay, so this is half of the dough that I had, half of the rough puff portion, and I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So probably 6 because some of them are a bit smaller. So I will take you to the next stage where we need to place these into our tins. And you'll see that when you look at a pastel de nata when it's cooked, you'll see the lovely swirls on the bottom. And that's exactly what this is going to give you. So let's get pressing into our tin. I'll show you exactly how. Okay, so I've got my cupcake slash muffin tin here. I've lightly greased them all because obviously we don't want this to stick. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put these in. So I'll show you with this one. I'll just put that in there, and this is what's going to form the base. And I can put a few in, so I'm just ready to rock and roll. So there we go, just place them in. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to be pressing these down with our fingertips and our thumbs so that it kind of forms like a pastry case. You know, just like how you would have it for a jam tart or something like that. But this is with the puff and it's got the swirl in it. So what you need for this is cold hands and maybe some water so that you can just sort of dip your fingers in so they're not getting too sticky, and the water kind of helps with that. So yeah, I'll show you how to do that now. It might seem a little bit weird because it's not super conventional, but that's why pastel de nata probably aren't gluten-free, because it's not like your classic way of doing things, but it's amazing and it makes it just so good. So watch me and I'll show you what I'm doing. So now I'm going to pop this into the fridge to chill whilst I do my custard. You can leave it in there for longer. It works just as well if you do these in advance and then let them chill and then do the custard later. Just what's important is that you do let them chill, because obviously you've been handling them a little bit and they'll be slightly stickier than you would have liked. So that is what I'm going to do now. Okay, so to make your custard, what we need to do is put our flour and our milk into a bowl. This is the small amount of milk, not the larger amount, as I split it into 2, and then whisk it until it's all nice and smooth. And then with the rest of the milk, we're going to pour that into a small saucepan and heat it up until it's just boiling. Okay, so once the milk that you've heated up has come to about boiling point, you want to add it to this bowl which had the smaller amount of milk and the flour in, and just whisk it in. I'm also going to add my vanilla at this point, and then I will put this to one side whilst I get on with the next bit. Okay, so next up we're going to make like a sugar syrup. So for that we're going to add our water into our pan. We're also going to add our caster sugar. You can use granulated sugar for this, that'd be fine. And then also a cinnamon stick, which, as I said, if you don't have one of these, it's fine, but just pop that in. We'll remove it at the end. And then we're just going to mix these together off the heat before we put them onto the heat. Okay, so I have now placed my saucepan with the sugar, the water and the cinnamon stick onto a very low heat. You can barely see that it's on, but it is on. And at this point, we now don't want to mix it again. I mixed it beforehand so it was just all combined. Now we don't want to mix it, and we want to heat it up really, really slowly. And this is where your thermometer comes in quite handy, because you want to kind of get it to about 100 degrees C, which the thermometer can do that exactly for you. But if you don't have a thermometer, when you think about it, water boils at 100 degrees. So at the point of boiling, you'll know that it's completely done. So yeah, I'm just going to leave this on a really low heat until it gets to the temperature I want. As soon as it gets to the temperature that I want, I'm going to remove it from the heat straight away, and then I'll be back. Okay, so this has got to the right temperature. I've just removed the cinnamon sticks. Obviously we don't want that anymore, that's done its job. And now I'm going to very, very gradually stream this into there whilst whisking all the time. So let's give this a go. Okay, so I've added all the sugary syrup now, and I'm just going to continue to whisk for a further sort of 5 minutes or so. just until this is all cooled down, and then we can add our eggs. Okay, so once this is nice and just warm, it doesn't have to be absolutely like cold, but you don't want it to be hot. We want to add our egg yolks. So add those in, scrape the bowl, and then we'll just whisk them in until they're combined, and our custard will be done. Now this is a really runny custard. It's not like a custard that thickens up. That's how you want it. So don't think, oh, I've done something wrong because it's really runny. That is exactly what you want. So let's whisk this to combine. Okay, so the custard is all ready. As you can see, really, really runny, really frothy. So I'm gonna now want to pour this into my pastry cases, but to make it easier, I'm going to pour it into a jug first so that it doesn't just go everywhere. Okay, so I've got my pastry cases out of the fridge where they've just been chilling, and I've got my custard, which is really frothy, but it's like a yellowy colour. And now I just want to mix the custard mixture into these. I'm going to fill it basically to the top, leaving just under 1 centimetre for each one. If you overfill, it doesn't really matter, but aim to do about that. And then I will be popping these into the oven on a really hot temperature. So I would say about 220 degrees C fan, which is 240. But if your oven goes even hotter than that, then put it a little bit hotter, because it definitely doesn't hurt. You want to get that sort of custard almost like blistering on top and get lots of colour, because it doesn't go for very long, about 15 minutes. So the hotter the better with these. Okay, so they're all ready to go into the oven. 15 minutes at the hottest it can go. So we're saying today, I'm gonna say today 240 degrees C fan, but whatever temperature your oven goes to, 220 C fan is fine. Let's just put them in 15 minutes and I will show you what they look like. And there we go. They look amazing, they smell amazing. The custard, as you can see, rises quite a lot, which is why you don't want to fill it too much. And then some of them, the ones in the hotter positions, got that nice little bit of sort of burnt custard kind of thing, which is just the best. So I'm gonna let these cool in the cupcake muffin tin for a little while, and then I'll remove them from here in sort of about 10 minutes or so and put them onto a cooling rack to fully cool. And then, well, not fully cool, because we could have them warm. So you can eat these warm, you can eat them cold, you can warm them up slightly. But yeah. So my pastel de nata are all done. I've let them cool down. They're kind of warm now and they're perfect for eating. So I thought I'd show you. Smell it first. Look. So there you go. It's got like a nice custardy top. I let it cook so it had that slight sort of overly, I don't like the word burnt, but it is. It's like almost like a burnt custard. And then on the back, you can see that really nice, there we go, really nice swirl of the pastry, which has come from rolling up the rough puff and all the layers and stuff. Honestly, like, just so good. So yeah, I mean, these are actually really easy to do. I don't think people think they are, and they come out, especially when you make it with your own pastry, they come out really nice and flaky and buttery, and the custard is like smooth and creamy, and I mean, it's just delicious. If you like custard tarts, you'll like pastel de nata, you like Portuguese custard tarts. So if you do want to make them, then I will leave a link in the description below to my book where you can find the full recipe, which will make it just that little bit easier. This video combined with that recipe will just be simple pimple. So if you've enjoyed this video and want to watch more videos like this, then click up here to watch my gluten-free rough puff pastry video, which will be very useful for this video because it's the pastry that you use for it. And click up here if you'd like to watch me make my gluten-free Pop-Tarts. And I will see you in the next video.